They paved over my road without asking. So I started reading every rule in their books. The HOA had big photos on a wall and no idea who I was. I had lived here longer than their presidents and their bylaws. They thought the shortcut was theirs and the gravel was theirs. They never walked my property lines or met my father. I did not call a lawyer at first. I measured and I waited. I learned who signed the permit and who pocketed the fees. They celebrated a ribbon while my tractor sat buried in dust. My neighbors nodded at barbecues and pretended not to see. I filed quiet requests and I kept the receipts at night. Phone calls went unanswered and the manager smiled in meetings. The first path to revenge is to make a plan that cannot be stopped. I learned tax codes and easements and the small print of liens. I spent afternoons at the county office with coffee and patience. I named the real owner and traced the permits to a shell. The HOA had built on an easement and they did not know it. I wrote letters in legal ink and I sent them certified and recorded. They fixed their wedding photos on the clubhouse wall and laughed. I found the one clause that made their ribbon a hazard to themselves. It was a simple rule about emergency access and utility setbacks. I hired a surveyor and he walked the lines and he signed with a stamp. Their new pavement sat in the zone reserved for a fire lane. I filed an official complaint with the county fire marshal. The marshal came with a clipboard and a patient voice and a map. They issued orders to remove structures that blocked the lane. Suddenly, every path they used to get to their cars was a violation. I did not break any glass or lock any gates or shout in the street. I only held a map and showed the paperwork to the right men. The HOA hired a lawyer who quoted fees and threats and old money. I countered with a certified notice and a deadline from a county office. They pastured their anger into meetings and motioned for votes. Votes change nothing when a binder of deeds says otherwise. The contractor who had smiled at a ribbon now saw his invoices audited. I asked for permits and copies and I filed for liens on shoddy work. My phone filled with calls from men who suddenly remembered courtesy. They returned the dirt and they regraded the road at their cost. I watched them unroll gravel where they had tossed concrete. The clubhouse closed for repainting and they paid every invoice. Their quarterly dues jumped and their treasurer resigned quietly. People learn that rules apply to those who write them too. I did not take revenge with fire or breaking bones or threats. I took it by the book and by the map and by every clerk who checks. Their cars found longer routes and slow entrances and fines. Neighbors who once waved avoided my porch and then came to apologize. I collected every receipt and I held them in a shoebox like evidence. My tractors drove again down a cleared path that waited for me. I walked the road at dusk and listened to a quiet that tasted like rightness. The HOA fixed what they broke and they paid that price in quiet bills. I left a copy of the survey under the mailbox for their president. They read it and they learned what it felt like to be served notice. My revenge cost me patience and an afternoon with county stamps. It cost them pride and meetings and a checkbook that would not close. In the end, the gravel stayed where it belonged, and so did the law. If you take what is mine, I will study the fine print and I will return.